Well, it's like yesterday.
Okay. Are we ready? Yep. Recording? Okay. We will call this meeting of the Palmer City Council to order at 6 o'clock on August 27th, 2024. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti. Here. Councilmember Cooper. Councilmember Best.
Here.
Councilmember Tudor. Mayor Carrington.
Here.
Councilmember Moline. Here. Councilmember Alcantara.
Here. And I think Councilman Tudor is sick and he let us know. And Councilman Cooper also, he's got an event which involves many grandkids. And I said, yes, you should enjoy. So if it's all right, if there's no objection, we'll give them excused absences for both. All right. If everyone could rise. Gina Davis, our finance director, could I have you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is approval of the agenda, which includes minutes from July 17th, July 18th, July 23rd, and August 6th. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second. All right. Is there any objection from the council, or should we make this unanimous? No, seeing no objection, we'll make that unanimous. Next, we have communications appearance. I don't think we have any elected officials or board commission members in here. City of Palmer 2023 audit presentation by Joy Mariner, Managing Partner, BDO USA. Welcome. We haven't seen you in a year. Well,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This
Might not be. We
Sounds
might,
like it.
Just have to hit that button on the back.
Press it and hold it.
you have to hold it like for 4 seconds or so. Now try talking. You have to get close to it.
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nice to see you all. I see a lot of familiar faces. My name's Joy Mariner. I serve as the lead partner on the audit for the City of Palmer. And I'm here to present your audit report. Exciting time of the year. I'm sure you're all very excited for this presentation. It's not, however, a very exciting presentation, which is exactly how you want your audit report to be. You should have several different documents in your packets. One is the audited financial statements for the City of Palmer. This is a very big packet. I promise not to go through it in a lot of detail. But you should have had a chance to review that and the information contained therein. We did issue this several weeks ago. And then the other one is a audit wrap-up, which is our report to the City Council for the City of Palmer with our audit results. Again, I'm not going to go through every page of the wrap-up, but I do want to highlight a few things for you. If you have it available, we can look at it together, or I can just verbally go through a few quick highlights. First of all is on page 5. Just the status. As I mentioned, the audit has been completed. We did issue an unmodified or a clean opinion on the financial statements, as well as the work that we did on the federal and state compliance audits, which we call a single audit. We also issued an unmodified opinion on your compliance with your federal and state grant awards that were subject to audit this year. So that is excellent news. That's what you would want to have as a council member as the results of an audit. And I'll just highlight for you really quickly on the single audit side of things. You did receive quite a bit of federal and state money. So the total federal expenditures in 2023 were just over $7 million, $7.18 million that was spent in 2023. That was primarily on the Airport Improvement Program, which was our major program that we audited in 2023. And then on the state of Alaska side, $1.15 million, a little bit more than $1 million of that was your wastewater treatment plant grant, which was our major program that we audited for compliance purposes in 2023 on the state side. And as I mentioned, there were no findings on either of those programs that we audited. The Airport Improvement Program is pretty complex, actually. There's a lot of compliance requirements around equipment, real property management, procurement. Even some of the reporting is a bit complex. So we've never had any problems with that program. You do a great job managing that. But just know that as they've been putting a lot more money, FAA has allocated more money for airport improvement projects over the last few years. It does put quite a bit of a burden on your team. And I know the Palmer Airport has grown and is doing lots of great things. I've been to several events there, which has really been fun. But just know that does might be something to just check in with your team periodically on and what's going on with the Airport Improvement Program because of the compliance burden that it places on your team administratively. The next page also mentions a couple quick things regarding your financial information for the year. And I actually want to go through to the following page because it's a little bit more summarized. The results of the audit-wise, there are no items that were significant changes in your policies and practices this year. You did adopt a new accounting standard. So if you remember from last year, you had a new standard around leases. It was a pretty big deal. You had to make a list of all the leases that the city had where you are leasing out or you're leasing from and account for all of that a little bit differently. This year, you are also doing something similar for all your software-based arrangements, IT arrangements. So, however, yours were not material. So Gina and her team went through a whole evaluation of all your software agreements, what programs you're using, what agreements you've signed, and determined that it was actually in the city's best interest not to record any of those in 2023. So just be aware of that as a standard. You did implement it. I believe that there was about $125,000 of what we call SEBITAs, but these are these software-based IT arrangements that you have outstanding where you have a commitment to pay for those over the coming years. And your team decided for $125,000 for the number of pages it would edit and the number of the accounting burden for that. It results in no change to your fund balance. It is a reporting item only. So that was not added to your financial statements, but was adopted. And then the other thing I'll note here is that the impairment of the library, you also received some insurance proceeds for a windstorm. And so those are all reflected in the statements. It's kind of an unusual transaction, and the library asset itself was taken off the books of the city during 2023, as it was determined to be impaired. Otherwise, really no items to bring to your attention regarding findings, no journal entries that we identified that needed to be corrected during the audit, and no internal control matters that were reported as part of our financial statement audit or our single audit. I do always just remind you, you do have a super user here. I imagine you realize who it is. Gina does lots of things and even stepped in to be interim city manager for some time, so welcome, Stephen. I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, but I'm glad to have you on board. I'm sure Gina is as well. And I think really the key here is if you have turnover in your finance director position, that's when the questions, it's a good time to ask the questions around, what access do people have? What can people do in your system? It's very common here in Alaska for finance directors to have this super user IT access. They can essentially post journal entries, those kinds of things on their own in the system. But it's very appropriate for your size of accounting team. I don't have concerns about that. I just bring it to your attention to remind you that you do have a lot of trust in a single employee, and your team does a lot with a small group of employees. That being said, the whole city is really involved in producing this document because everybody is involved in either payroll or purchasing, procurement, and approving invoices for payment, and that's really important. We look pretty carefully at controls, what we call controls, or checks and balances in place to make sure money coming in the door is protected and reported properly, and money leaving the door is approved and is reasonable and appropriate. So no items to report on that side of things. Questions on the wrap-up before we look at a few financial statement highlights?
Any questions from council? Or manager?
I have a tendency to speak quickly, so please feel free to interrupt me if I say anything. Okay, so the financial statements are long, you might notice, and I'm going to cover not very much of them, percentage-wise anyway. 143 pages of financial information. I'm sure you have other things that are more pressing to talk about, but let's touch on base on just what's in here to start, and then talk quickly about a few key highlights. So if you just turn to the table of contents, you can see that this includes the auditor's report, as well as the basic financial statements. But between those two things is called the management's discussion and analysis. Page 6 to 17 is what we refer to as the MD&A. And if you're looking for something that's a great read and a good summary of your financial information, this is a good place to go. So if you have questions about what's happening at the city, what are the trends that you've seen over the past few years, the MD&A is probably your highest and best use of your time when reviewing the financials. You also have your basic information in your financials themselves. Notes to the basic financial statements are about 35 pages there in the middle. And then you have required information on the pensions, and then supplementary information on all of your funds. So that's excellent referral information if you just want to see what's happening at the airport, or I want to know what happens in the general fund and public safety and fuel. You can get down to that level of detail. Not every city presents this information, but it's really helpful when you're looking back in time to see trends or to see information. If you want more detail, you can always go to the back and look for it. And then the last area I'll just highlight for you at the very end of the table of contents is the single audit section, including your schedule of federal awards, state awards, and their opinions on compliance. I don't plan to go through those. As I mentioned, you had an unmodified or clean opinion on those. So financially, when we look at the financial statements themselves, a couple quick things to go through. I'm not going to go through the MD&A in detail. So if you can turn with me to page 20 and 21. Page 20 and 21 is your statement of net position. So in the for-profit world, you call this a balance sheet. It shows you on December 31st the things that you owned are assets, the things that you owe to others are liabilities, and what's left over is your net position. Keep in mind that this statement shows you everything. So you're going to see business type activities and governmental activities. Airport, golf courses, business type activities. Governmental activities is pretty much everything else. This also includes things that you don't see every month on your fund statements because it includes things like your capital assets and your pension liabilities. So your general fund isn't having to do that. You're budgeting for capital outlay or your capital projects. So it's different in a budgeting basis that you're reviewing on a regular basis, but it is giving you this information at a point in time what you had here. And as you notice, your largest category of assets are capital assets. That's this building, it's the infrastructure assets that you have, water, sewer, those types of things. You also have a significant amount in cash and investments, which is really important for continuing operations of a city. Total assets this year of $138 million. If you include what we call deferred outflows, it's $139 million overall. Liabilities are things you owe to others. You have things like your bonds payable, leases payable, payments to your employees, which are accrued payroll, or to your vendors, accounts payable. You also have a net pension liability that you can't pay off if you wanted to. It's part of the state pension liability as a whole. And I just want to note here too, you actually have a net pension asset for your OPEB or the post-employment benefits, the healthcare component of the PERS system. So that's actually in an asset position. You have $3.6 million of an asset, and on the liability side, $7.7 million as a liability. So it's actually turning itself around, at least on the healthcare side. Do you have a question?
I do. From a layman's side, it's a little difficult to understand. So under the net pension liability, governmental activities, I understand that aspect. Business type activities.
No, great question. So under the accounting principles, you have to essentially take the liability and allocate it to the different areas of your city that are impacted. So because you have employees at the airport and the golf course that are PERS eligible, they carry a portion of that liability. But just in total, this city has the 7.7. It's allocated between your enterprise type activities and your governmental activities. Yeah. So this doesn't give you a whole lot of information about what you should do from a day-to-day basis, and I'd like to switch over really quickly to the following page. Let's see, page 25 is the page I really want to look at. Because page 25 is going to show you what you normally see for your governmental activities on a fund level basis. What happened over the course of the year. So we just looked at where you are at a point in time. This is telling you kind of more of the story of what happened during the year. So you can see on your governmental side, you have total revenues of $17 million. You did see increases in taxes this year, both property taxes and sales taxes. And then I will say grant revenue is a little bit unpredictable over the last 4 years because of all of the COVID money that's come and gone. So total revenue in 2023 of $17 million, expenditures of $17.2 million. And keep in mind that that's showing a total loss in a sense of $186 million, but a lot of that has to do with the timing of when you're spending your capital outlay on your capital projects. If you just look over at the general fund's actually generating about $2.5 million of revenues over expenses. And you use that by transferring those things out for capital projects for other types of things that you're doing here at the city. So the general fund is generating money from taxes, licenses, fees, charges for services, and then you are approving as a council transferring those monies out for specific purposes like capital related.
Just for the record, that was 186,000, not 186.
Correct. Did I say million? I apologize. For the record, it's 1,000. Overall, as a city, your total net change in fund balance across all your funds, after all those transfers, is $2 million, $2.16 million that time. I will note that you can see a big number there under insurance recoveries. You finally did get your insurance settlements for the windstorm, and I think that might even include water tower damage too. So total there of $1.7 million. So just kind of have that in the back of your mind. That's an unusual item that hopefully you don't have on a regular basis. So total change there is included in the 2.167. One thing I look at pretty carefully is your fund balance at the end of the year. In the general fund, you have 13.9, almost 14 million in general fund expenses, which is about 1 year of total expenditures in the general fund, as it were, kind of reserves to look at. And I know that's a number that you tend to look at carefully. Keep in mind, however, 5.2 million of that has been advanced to other funds, so it's not really available for you in the short term. And it's been advanced primarily to water sewer, but some amounts to the airport. And that was done intentionally to save you money on having to draw debt or fund those through external financing, essentially. So with that, you've got about 6 months of expenditures available in the general, a little more than that, actually. 13, yeah, just a little more than 6 months of expenditures available in your fund balance to meet your working capital needs. I would not call that too much. I would say working capital is a tricky thing. You need to have enough money to pay your bills and to weather storms, maybe literally, and also to be able to get payments from, reimbursed from your grants, those kinds of things. So that's a healthy number. It's something that I look at with my clients and I track over time. There's a similar story to tell for the enterprise funds on page 29, which is the last page I plan to go through with you. Page 29 gives you the same story type of picture, what's the ins and the outs for the enterprise fund. So this is for water, sewer, and the airport, and you have non-major enterprise funds like the golf course primarily is in there. So total revenue there you can see overall is 5.8 million. Total operating expenses of 7.8 million. Do note that that is for almost all the funds operating at an operating loss. There is a depreciation line there. Depreciation is not a cash outlay. You've already purchased these systems. This represents the usage of those systems. So while they are operating at a loss, they are operating at essentially a cash positive or a cash break even in the case of the airport. In most cases, our cities are not expecting the users of those enterprises to cover fully the cost of depreciation where grants have paid for it. So for the airport, for example, you would have a hard time recovering charges for services from the people using the airport to fully cover all the FAA-funded capital that you've received over the years. Other things in here include the water and sewer loss and asset impairment. That was for the water tower damage. And then overall, you can see there are some capital contributions. Those are the capital grants that you've received to support those enterprises, 7.4 million. That really makes up for the difference of what you've seen in these funds. So overall, $5 million increase, change in net position, largely having to do with the capital grants that you've received in the airport. I know I covered a lot very quickly. I will just note that the financial statement notes provide you a lot more information. So if you want to see what's in your cash, what's your cash comprised of, or you want more information about your capital assets, what's in buildings versus water sewer infrastructure, that information is all included in the notes. And I'm happy to answer any questions as it relates to any specific amounts or balances. But I just want to finish up by just saying thank you to Gina. As usual, she does an excellent job. John was also here for all of 2023 and for the audit. He was also just instrumental in making sure the financial statements came through timely, and we got through the audit process, as well as ever. It went super well this year, very streamlined, and just want to congratulate her for another successful and clean audit. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Mayor, for questions.
Okay, I have a basic question. So will this be available probably on our website after it's approved in a PDF format, or if public people are really bored and want to check on our finances? Okay. Councilman Alcantara.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Joy. Great presentation, as always. So one of my couple of years I've been with the city budget and a lot of years with borough, state, and federal budgets, so a little higher budget numbers. But one thing I wanted to point out, I'll go to 17, page 17, where you say that sales tax revenue is approximately 70% of the actual revenues. But then if you go to page 22 and you compare sales tax revenue to property tax revenue, you can continue that through to your, as you mentioned on page 25. If you actually go to taxes itself, sales taxes, about 85% of the taxes, and property taxes a little less than 15%. There seems to be some chatter out there in the general world that, there's some sort of even split between property taxes, or that sales tax isn't carrying a heavy part of the load. So I get that if you add all the figures together, including charges for services and other things, then sales tax goes down to a 70% figure. But just in tax revenue itself, sales tax is 85% of the revenue, 85 plus, and property tax is about 14.5%. Am I reading it correctly?
Correct. I think that's something that certainly Gina could consider adding a sentence to clarify that in the MD&A next year. We do audit the MD&A insofar as we make sure the numbers calculate correctly to the financials, but this is really her narrative. So that would be useful information. I'm sure we can add a sentence that clarifies how much of total revenue versus how much total tax.
Councilmember Maloon.
I have nothing to say.
Okay. Councilman Best?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just so that the public is fully aware, when we're referencing in your presentation water tower, we're not talking about the downtown water tower, we're talking about the water storage tank that is off of
Yes, my
Trump.
apologies.
No, it's quite all right. It's
Your
it's-
main
it's-
water
it's
tower
still
seems
wa-
just
yeah.
fine.
Yeah, well, and I don't want the general public to think that we spent that much money repairing something
Sure.
that they didn't see any project working on, so, but also I would like to commend Ms. Gina for her steady hand over the years to making sure that we have always been, clean as a whistle, for the most part on our audits. My question to you is, do you see any regulatory changes coming up in the next year that we're going to need to be very mindful of that might cause us to have to hire any additional staff or just be additional support?
Excellent question. I would say things are starting to calm down. I almost don't want to say that, but COVID was a really rough time. Your team did a lot of extra work around that. The only standard happening in 2024 that may impact you is there's a new standard around compensated absences. So you may see Gina come to you with some questions for clarification in your policies around accrued leave, PTO leave, sick leave, that kind of thing, that may impact your accounting. But I don't think there's anything on the horizon that concerns me too much, although I will just say we're seeing pretty big impacts, and I know we probably read about it a lot, but it's actually real. Big impacts on cybersecurity, big costs when they happen. And the other thing is we're still trying to figure out the impact AI will have on our governments. So far, it's been fairly limited in Alaska, but a lot of our governments have already contracted with AI type of resources for their teams, which can come with its own cybersecurity risks as well. So it's something to just be aware of, as some of the software systems out there, they come with that enabled automatically without people even knowing that that's there. So it's worth kind of giving good support to your IT folks when they're looking at software packages or looking at software agreements to make sure that cybersecurity and AI are both addressed, and they can be somewhat linked.
And to clarify further, we've actually got 3 or 4 locations where we store water around the city. This is the one nearest, I think, the Matsu College. Yeah, just for the record. Any other council comments or questions for the auditor? Mr. Manager, would you want to go ahead?
Thank you very much for the report, Gina. Great job as always, and thank you. On page 25, as it relates to the fund balance, could you articulate to council, I know you're talking about your recommendation for what should be on hand, but what from your perspective, or what guidance is there, whether it's from the state or whether it is, where's our floor? Where do they not want to go below? There's some things coming up that council will be making some pretty big decisions in the future, so I just want to get a good feel for what is the absolute? Is there such thing as an absolute versus a recommendation for what's healthy?
Sure. So if you look at the 14 approximate that you have here at the end of 2023, and back out what you have in advances to other funds, that 5 million or so, you're getting to somewhere around, I have to do like 9 million there. So, that's somewhere around 7 months of expenditure, 8 months. I can't do quick math without my 10 key here. Yeah. So all of that to say, GFOA is the Government Finance Officers Association. They're a national organization for government finance officers like Gina. And they do have a kind of best practice white paper manual around this, and I'm happy to send along to to you, and then you can send it to the council as you see fit. I want to say their number is somewhere around 3.5 months. I think that's low for what we deal with in Alaska and the unpredictability of our weather, our climate, and our access to things. If you have an emergency, you can't just, get it from the manufacturing facility in Mississippi tomorrow. We have different benchmarks. I get uncomfortable under 6 months where I start talking to my clients about it. And not that I think that you're at risk of folding or that you couldn't weather that, but I think that I've seen that be an issue in Alaska. That being said, I think Alaskans, generally speaking, have had good legislative support at the federal and state level when those things have occurred. And so maybe that mitigates that a little bit, but I can send you what the GFOA recommends. And then certainly that's something I actually am presenting in December at the GFOA, the Alaska GFOA conference, around net asset fund balance reserves and net position reserves and restrictions, specifically this topic. So for cities that are thinking about changing their policies, adopting new policies, there's lots of variety in practice. There's a lot of creativity in this area, but I think some level of practicality mixed with just, you don't want it to be too much that you have so much sitting there that the citizens can't leverage it. You're here to serve your citizens, but at the same time, you need to make sure you protect your city. So there's a balance to be had, and there's lots of different strategies that can get you to where you need to be. Not that you're not where you need to be right now, but to at least clarify what you need to have in reserves.
Is there anything else, Mr. Manager? Okay, your mic's still on, that's why I was asking. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
And do we need to accept this audit?
Not part of your code.
Okay, I didn't see any motion or anything, I just was, okay. All right. So next we have city manager's report. Mr. Jelly.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, community. Just want to say thank you all. My first 8 days or so has been exciting, adventurous, and informative. I don't have anything by way of a specific report, but I do thank all of you for the time last week, sitting down, talking to me about your perspectives and what your expectations are for the position and where you see your city going. So look forward to further dialogue with all of you, and look forward to dialogue with the community as well. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Does the council have any questions or comments for the manager? Okay. Oh, Councilman Alcantara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Jelly, you did say, I think I heard you say that you've been able to meet with all 6 council members and the mayor separately in the first 8 days you've been here?
Yes, sir. I met with everybody. One council member I couldn't meet with face-to-face, but we had a lengthy conversation on the phone.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilman Best.
I'd just like to say welcome, and it was a great conversation we had. I look forward to hearing your insights as you get your feet a little bit more wet when you get back, and working with our directors and the employees, and welcome.
Very good. Yes, I would echo that as well. Next would be the mayor's report. In my written report, I went through a lot of with the MPO and the documentation, which I decided to kind of highlight this because this is a big deal in the sense that nonprofits, the main thing about nonprofits is they're all different. And so the documents that you have for a nonprofit are the guiding principle. And so things like conflict of interest or whistleblower policy all refer back to the documents that the nonprofit has. So, and those are all available on the website, but the MPO approved them. They've been out for comment for 45 days or more for a lot of them. So I just wanted to kind of comment on that and make sure people know that it's available there. And I guess that's about it. Does anyone have any questions for me? Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not really a question, just my twice yearly or maybe quarterly attaboy for your written reports. I really appreciate the 2, 3, 4-page capsule of what's been going on, and I don't know if that's a required thing, but I certainly, in my time on council, appreciate that you have done it, I think, very religiously. I don't remember a time we didn't submit a written report. Maybe it's happened, but I do appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thanks. And part of it is I'm trying to lead by example, so I will probably pester our new manager to say, hey, you probably should do a little bit of a written report. But, you know, grace for this time. Next is City Clerk.
I submitted a written report, so if anybody has any questions, I'm ready.
A written report.
A written report.
Is there any questions for the clerk about? I think she'll probably want to remind us that October 1st is the election. Okay. No other questions for the clerk? Okay. Madam Attorney.
Good evening. I don't have a report, but I wanted to let everyone know the September 10th meeting, I will be Zooming in, and I'm available for questions. And for clarification, I'm not going to do a written report. No, I'm doing it simply because things evolve so quickly, and I'm your attorney, so we're cautious about putting things in writing unless you ask me for a specific report, and those are submitted in writing.
Understood. Any questions for the attorney from the council? Okay. All right. Next is audience participation. A reminder, council meeting rules protect your right to testify and be heard even if others in the room disagree with you. Council meeting rules also ensure that those attending can express their views if they do not interfere with the rights of others to see and hear the proceedings. At all times, order and decorum will be maintained in keeping with the civility and dignity of the legislative process. Please be respectful during audience participation. No disruptions to city business or threats of any kind will be allowed. Individuals who cannot follow these guidelines will be removed. Any threats against others could result in criminal prosecution. Please sign in, state your name, 3 minutes per person. And,
John isn't here.
oh, Benji's.
Used to Josh.
Josh usually grabs it, yes. Thank you. So Travis, is it freezing?
Yeah. Well, my name is Travis. I live in Palmer, and I've been going to the fair, and I've seen that the recycling program is working well. I see that the recycling bins to recycle plastic, but I think there should also be a bin for recycling paper, but not necessarily the ones with food content on it, because that won't be recycled. That's not recyclable enough. And I would also like to see, not just at the fair, but in Palmer, a bin for food waste to be composted. At the dump, they have a place where they have a compost area where people can drop off things such as grass clippings and wasted food. Why not we do that in certain businesses, so that instead of having food waste accumulate in the landfill and attract unwanted pests, we could turn it into compost, soil that could be used for growing stuff. So that's just an idea. I'll keep coming until people take me seriously. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Jackie, go for it.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council and new manager. My name is Jackie Goforth. I've been coming here to talk about grooming materials that are in the Palmer Library Young Adult section that are meant to normalize sexuality and pedophilia for children for over 17 months now. The reason why is that it's the only avenue I have. The so-called policy is all locked up nice and tight, and it's wrapped in fascism. Those who control and manipulate it are the same ones who follow the sexual grooming agenda. Let me explain. It appears the main source of the obscene books in our library is the nonprofit entity called Friends of the Palmer Public Library. They've been around for years doing wonderful things, but that's changed. Nowadays, they push leftist Marxist woke agenda, and that includes distributing obscene material to children without their parents' knowledge. Did you know that when you follow the Palmer Library Challenge, the people you actually meet with about it in a closed environment are the same people who are responsible for getting the books in there? That's why we continue to speak up here. That's why we continue to protest. That's actually why I registered my own nonprofit on April 14th. It was to have a seat at the table. I did some research before I registered, and I bought a business license for Friends of the Palmer Library on April 14th. I chose the name mainly because it was available. I could not believe that the Friends of the Palmer Public Library were using a name they had not licensed. Do you realize that's a violation of Alaska law 12.AAC 12.020A and G? To solicit and ask for donations in a name you don't own? And where else can you possibly register for anything with the state without having your real name? Your driver's license, your fishing license, your marriage license, property? You tell me. Everyone has to register with their real name. So why on September 19th did the Friends of the Palmer Public Library register with APOC, the Alaska Public Commission, with a fake name, same fake name, Friends of the Palmer Library? They registered to run a campaign. And the worst part is they ran their donation link through the City of Palmer website as Friends of the Palmer Library. And they don't own that name. You guys had a website link on your library, on your website, that was illegal. And now, on the next day, September 20th, you know what they did? They amended their filing with APOC, and they said, we're not running a campaign in 2023. They were already running one. That was a bald-faced lie. They had yard signs, flyers, posting. You know, stating that you didn't run a campaign when you are is so questionable that I filled out and filed an APOC complaint. And you know what happened? The very day that they received the notice on a Saturday, the link for that donation got deleted. So I file FOIAs to ask what's going on, and I get no record found. You know, the next thing that happened is, the first week of June, I got a certified letter from the state saying I had no authorization to use the Palmer City Library as for my nonprofit, and I had no affiliation. How can I have no affiliation when you had a donation link for me? So I sent a FOIA request to the city, and you know what they said? No record found.
That's your time.
I have another session. I'll continue. Thank you.
Michelle Kincaid.
Good evening. I'm Michelle Kincaid. I want to thank the City Council for requesting planning and zoning update the codes for the high parking business needs. Restaurants require parking one space per 2 seats, more than one space. I recently took a picture of Feather and Flower, and their guest ratio was 1 space for every 1.66 guests. Next meeting, we'll be providing you guys with some binders to show you the information. Anyone saying there's not a parking problem in Palmer, most likely they are not the operator of the business in Palmer. Some business owners are not concerned about parking, but believe me, the tenant inside is very concerned. The one paying the rent, making the payroll, relying on the customer base to park and access their store. They care about the parking. After attending City Council and Planning and Zoning, a lot of questions have been coming up. Planning and Zoning asked who enforces the code. The 320 Dahlia property got a partial waiver for 9 spaces. On some of their events, they're consuming more than 300 spaces on a partial waiver for 9. Who failed in monitoring the partial waiver for 9 parking spaces and grossly negligent in its duties, ignoring the Palmer parking code? Who failed as they did additions requiring more parking and most likely occupancy rating? I again ask, who investigates and who enforces the parking codes? Who enforces the occupancy rating? Also, who interprets the code? While reviewing a waiver at 736 South Alaska, we found evidence that says to count street parking towards the requirement, each 25 feet which is marked for parking counts. I believe if the files are gone through, the city attorney will find that this practice and meaning of counting each 25 feet of frontage as parking is incorrect if they're just blindly doing it in regards to fire hydrants, yellow setbacks. I believe that the Just So building only has 2 parking spaces. You'll see a picture in your box that shows the yellow marking, so they don't have enough to count 2 on the front South Alaska or behind at Colony. How can you count a yellow parking space that's against the law to park there? How can you count a non-existing space? And then what neighbor's parking space are they going to take up their staff for 8 hours as they park all day in front of another person's building? I asked the city attorney to look into this discrepancy, and if needed, I can request, pay for, and provide all restaurant and bar city files. I heard the rumor that the barbecue place intends to go forward with their 50-seat restaurant and conference room. I know it's a rumor until it turns into a permit, but I'm told the city won't provide a permit or license without parking. But what happens if they misrepresent the size? Who's going to force it? There's going to be another Dahlia Street mess on South Alaska. Is somebody leading him on at the barbecue? Is he thinking if he can ignore the codes like everybody else? Why else would he be spending then hundreds of thousands of dollars?
That's your time.
Thank you very much.
Lori Koppenberg.
Thank you. I'm going to follow up with Michelle, Mayor and council members, and welcome City Manager Jelly. What we talked about is, what is the parking code? And when you point to our city code of 1764035, they talk a lot about off-street parking and shared parking. And what that says is when that happens, I've got to find my paper now. I just had it marked and I just misplaced it. Off-street parking states, effective March 27, 2001, if the commission permits parking spaces to be on a lot other than the subject lot, then the commission, as a matter of law, shall require at a minimum the following conditions: that the off-site lot be made subject to duly recorded enforceable covenants running with the land reasonably acceptable to the city, which basically states that that property is encumbered by that parking in its entirety, in perpetuity. It cannot get rid of it and say, oh, I want to sell my property today, and no longer are those parking spaces allowed. So no property owner is going to encumber their own private property for the sake of another business. So with that question, with what Michelle said, the city has allowed the waivers to go forward with the Selleck building using the depot parking lot. So the city should in itself have a deeded recorded property with the Department of Natural Resources that says this building has access to the depot for these necessary spaces. The Dahlia property, which is known as the L House, the property across the street, should also have duly recorded title saying that they share and have access to that property in perpetuity until those go away. So we just plan to educate you and share with you what it requires. So when it comes back to you from planning and zoning, you make the right decision. And I'll share with you as well that it truly is not a rumor what Michelle said. The owner of the property shared with his neighbor that even though the city denied his waiver, he plans to go forward with it. And in the writing, in the letter that they submitted to City Council, their goal is 130 seats. And that will require 14 to 20 staff. You're talking about 60 to 70 parking spaces. They want to use the depot or they want the railroad to give up their property. That's not going to happen. The City Council has a responsibility. It's already failed in its responsibility to what the waivers are on the books, and it's time to step up and do what is asked and not put the responsibility and the onus on other property owners and businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Lewis.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, and City Council, and new manager. The newly formed Library Citizens Advisory Committee had their first book review on the book titled Identical. It's about identical twins, and when they were 9 years old, one of them was being sexually molested by their father. Another sick detail is that the other sister was envious. This is just what a pedophile would like to hear. And the details of the sexual molestation are excruciating. The good news is the members of the LCAC, or the Library Citizens Advisory Committee, voted unanimously, including the liberals, that Identical contained indecent material according to Alaska state law, which means it's illegal to have those books there. If it's indecent, it's illegal. And we have almost 100 books throughout our borough that are indecent and will be challenged. Some of those books are duplicates too. Our Attorney General, Treg Taylor, states in his letter to all school and public libraries that they should be aware of the legal framework that prohibits certain actions regarding minors and indecent materials. He stated that the purpose of his letter was to bring awareness and assist school districts and libraries in complying with the law. Of note is that there are no exceptions to any of the laws listed for administrators, teachers, or for librarians. The AG listed the 3 criminal statutes. 1 is distribution of indecent materials to minors, 2 is enticement of a minor, and 3, contributing to the delinquency of a minor. In the law pertaining to distribution of indecent material to a minor, it states that the person intentionally distributed or possessed with the intent to distribute material. It's obvious that because the library shelved indecent materials with the intent to give access to children or teens, that the librarians are responsible for harming the children. I've argued with the librarians when they say that it's the responsibility of their parents. The parents have to sign off saying their children can check out books, but the parents are likely believing, like I used to, that libraries and librarians are safe. Libraries that contain and purpose to distribute indecent materials to children are not safe.
Is there anyone else for audience participation?
Wesley Arts, Palmer Bar. One thing I noticed, I was at the planning and zoning, you can change that clock to where it counts down, where we can see how much time we have when we're speaking. Just random information. Also, I'm curious, how many parking spots are downtown? How many businesses, with the existing businesses we have, how many of the street parking spots take up the existing parking spots that we have downtown? I'm just curious at the numbers, because it seems like the people who are owning the property are going to be encumbered with other businesses parking, which we have to pay insurance, snow clearing, all the other issues. And these other businesses that have waivers don't have to. And that's a huge expense. If something happens in my parking lot, I'm responsible. So are you guys going to be responsible if it happens in the street? I just want everyone on the same level playing field. And I understand some of the small little shops. That's what makes Palmer Palmer. We have to keep them open. The little street. Those are not high volume places like restaurants and bars. Please think about that. It's like, we got to keep the little quirky little shops open. That's what makes the whole downtown scene. But thank you. I just wanted to say the parking issue. How many parking spots are there downtown that the city has to give away? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation who hasn't already spoken?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Mike Malevsky. I live in downtown Palmer, and we operate one of those quirky little places, radio station with our studios right across from the depot. Parking is interesting. We have people who come, they're going to be interviewed and so on, and they park there. But typically, since I live downtown, I can walk over or bring my bike inside. And I think there's I just wanted to comment, there's quite a variability in terms of usage. But I think the question asked around how many, just the number, but the dispersal of parking slots, it would be really interesting to see. I'm a graphically oriented person, and I would love to see a map of the city with all of the parking lots and all of the slots that are there. I think that would be fascinating. I don't know what it would cost to do that in time, but it would be an interesting thing to do. I want to mention that. Secondly, I promised the mayor that I would speak about him today. And so I would like to follow through with that promise. Some of you were in attendance at the Monday meeting. There was a combined Palmer and Wasilla Chamber of Commerce meeting. It happens every year at the fairgrounds. And there's a lot of people there. And the typical selection is for prominent people to be chosen to speak. Well, our own mayor, Steve Carrington, was chosen as one of those people to speak. The mayor of the borough was not there. She had to be somewhere else. But Mike Brown, the manager, was there, and he spoke very well. If you've listened to him, he's an accomplished speaker. He did a great job. The mayor from the Senate was also there. She covered a lot of ground, but I would have to say that our own Palmer mayor was able to capture the attention of that audience. I don't know if any of you were there to see that, a few of you were, but he captured it, and he captured the essence of what Palmer is about when he spoke. And I think that that was a metaphor for what Palmer is about. There's a kind of an essence of Palmer that makes it a bit different than most other places around. And I just wanted to compliment the mayor. You'll have to take my word because I don't think it was recorded, but he did a good job. Thank you.
Thank you, I think. Is there anyone else for audience participation that hasn't spoken? Okay, we will close audience participation. Next is public hearing. We have resolution number 24-034, a resolution of the Palmer City Council authorizing the city manager to allocate additional funds in an amount not to exceed $97,332 from the general fund unassigned fund balance for the rehabilitation of lighting at the Warren Bud Woods Palmer Municipal Airport. And we'll open the public hearing and see if anyone wants to come to speak to this specific resolution. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. What's the wishes of the council? Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any questions? Would you like a staff report?
Yes, please.
Mr. Manager, how would you like to have a staff report?
John, could you come up and just talk about what we're doing? We have Mayor and Council, John comes up to the airport. John's given me a pretty significant overview of where we are. I think you'll find this project is something we have to do. John, is this where are we borrowing money?
Yes, it is.
This is, so we're borrowing money. This money will actually all come back to us once our grant is through. But John will explain the project so we're all aware.
Yes, it is.
Hey, John.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'd like to, this is the second time I've stood before you or sat before you and explained this project. I'm saying that because I'm coming back and asking for more. The way that we've structured this project, we're fronting the capital cost of the design and the environmental work. It's also possible to get a grant from the FAA to do that, and we chose not to do that to expedite the project, to make it come faster. We're expecting to get the grant picked up in April of next year. At that time, we're expecting to be refunded 95% of our cost to that point. And typically, and I'll back up a little bit here, there's a 2024 FAA Reauthorization Act. Typically, we are refunded the FAA spends 93.75% of the project, and we cover 6.25% for the city match. The 2024 FAA reauthorization has temporarily increased the FAA portion of that to 95%. So the number that's in the legislation is a little inaccurate. There should be a savings of about $35,000 to $40,000 on top of what we're going to spend. I anticipate to spend between $160,000 to $200,000 with some optional, and that'll be some optional additives in there. So what I'm asking you for tonight is for a total city contribution of about $300,000, with the understanding that our total spend on this project is going to be about $200,000.
Councilmember Malone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to be clear, this 97,332 is part of that total
Yes, ma'am.
that you're discussing, which then in turn you're going to seek the grant, which has been discussed in the past, that would account for this additional ask.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I just had to get it in my
It's
speak.
yeah, the
Thank
total
you.
ask is going to be about $300,000. Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank my fellow council member for that question, and just clarify it, put a fine point on it here, John, because I don't want to be perceived as being anti-airport. I think you did a good job presenting. But now the 93.75 is going to go in the future to 95%. With this total that you're asking us to do, including the 97,000 tonight, that's not reimbursable. We're not going to get 95% of that 97 grand back at any point in time, are we?
The total spend, including what I'm asking for tonight, is going to be just shy of $300,000, and I expect to be reimbursed 95% of that $300,000.
Oh, that puts my mind a little more at ease. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions for John or the manager? Okay. Thank you, John. Are we ready to vote then?
Yep.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalotti?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Unanimous?
Next is resolution number 24-035, a resolution of the Palmer City Council appointing election officials for the City of Palmer regular election on Tuesday, October 1st, 2024. We will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this specific resolution can come forward and do so. All right, we will close the public hearing. What's the wishes of the council? Move to approve.
Second.
Sorry.
Moved and seconded. Is there any questions or,
Yeah, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Malone?
Thank you. Just out of interest, the total spend on because I believe that you're paying some of is that correct? We pay them. So what's the total spend that we have on that, or is that something you can back for and ask for later?
It's around $3,000.
Okay, perfect, okay. I figured it was roughly about that, but okay, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Alcantara?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the utmost transparency and caution here, I'm the only person in this room that's going to be on that ballot in 5 weeks, and I just ask aloud to you, sir, and maybe the city attorney, if maybe I should abstain from this vote or remove myself from the chambers while the vote is taken.
Madam Attorney?
I appreciate the request, but I think everyone's aware of that, and I don't see the need for you to need to abstain from that. This is part of the course, traditional, just our election process.
Okay. Councilman Best?
I appreciate the attorney's opinion on this. Throughout the history of me being on city council, it has been also, if somebody feels uncomfortable about it, that council has not had any problems. If you wanted to request to recuse yourself from the vote, that council hasn't forced anybody to take a vote that they were uncomfortable with as well. So I just want to state that. But I would like to come back also with those folks that are participating in this. I want everybody to remember these are citizens of our community participating in to help make sure that the process is open and transparent, and I appreciate them stepping up. And it is sometimes a thankless job, and sometimes you get people that are a little bit passionate in their participation. Hope everybody has a little grace, but I would like to say thank you to those folks that are volunteering to this.
Yes, we do greatly appreciate it. Councilman Alcantara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that being said, I appreciate the kudos to the people that step up, because it is a long, long day. Obviously, it's more than just the 13 hours that the polls are open. But with what my fellow council member said and the fact that I know several of these people, I would like to recuse myself from the vote and exit the chambers for a second.
All right.
Yeah, you need to rule on that.
We need to rule on that? Well, the mayor needs to rule on that? Okay. I will respect Councilman Alcantara's wishes. Okay. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Okay. Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline? Yes. Deputy Mayor Angelotti?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous.
If we only had 4 people, I might not have been so generous. Because it takes 4 votes to pass it. Yeah. I think you might have been taking...
We can take 5.
Yeah, we can go ahead and take 5. It sounds like he got to take 5, so we'll take a 5-minute break.
This would be a substantial financial gain.
I know, but
he's
if
uncomfortable,
it's,
though, it's
if someone's uncomfortable, is that, I'm not going to require someone to vote.
You just have to vote that it's not oh no, I don't care. As long as I get my 4 votes, I don't care. I'm good. I've only got 4.
Oh, yeah. Yes. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah. And this is, I'm sitting there, I'm going, oh, this is, I already want this down. Also, the south side. Yeah, I don't. I see my line faded, so. Well, I'm trying to find a job. Going out on the street, I need yes. So trust me, you don't have to call because for maybe some we don't know about, we are so identify where we're at. Yes, that whole street there, that was nice. All of top there. Panel box. So it was not the wires. So what we do is nice clean new wires. We panel box and there's
All right, someone pointed out my 5-minute break is going long. Okay, so, we're back in session. Somebody might open the door and say, Richard! So, I don't know where he is. The attorney will go looking.
I think he's using the bathroom.
Yeah, he might be. All right, so next is action memoranda. Action memorandum number 24-048, authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter into a contract with Northern Gravel and Trucking LLC for the purchase and delivery of 180 tons of road salt in an amount not to exceed $30,600. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve?
Second. Is there any questions or discussion?
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes, Councilmember Moline.
A quick question, if I can, to the city manager, Mr. Jolie, which might end up coming to Jude. Do we have an excess salt left over, or is this okay? Well, that was that. Thank you.
So what was the answer?
There is no salt left over.
Okay, thank you. You asked a good question, and we didn't see the nod or shake of the head. Okay. questions from the council on salt? All right, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Alcantra?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Angeloni?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline? Yes. Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right, action memorandum number 24-050, authorizing utility water connection for 12301 East Woodstock Drive, located outside of Palmer city limits. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second. Okay. Any questions or desire of a staff report? Okay. If we're ready to vote then, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Angeloni?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra?
Yes.
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. Action memorandum number 24-051, authorizing the city manager to purchase an Exmark Laser Z lawnmower from Alaska Electric and Control, Inc., DBA Jewel Equipment, for an amount not to exceed $18,000 for the Palmer Municipal Golf Course. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right. Is there any questions of the council? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Angeloni?
Yes.
Mayor Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Moline?
Yes.
Unanimous.
All right. Action memorandum number 24-052, authorize the city manager to issue a contract to perform additional interior demolition at the Palmer Public Library to determine the full scope of the structural damage with Steppers Construction, Inc. for an amount not to exceed $44,844. What's the wishes of the council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Is there any questions or comments from the council?
Staff report.
Deputy Mayor?
I would make a staff report, but also, just the staff
Let's
report
go
first
with
would be
the
great,
staff
yeah.
report. Mr. Manager, how would you like to proceed?
Mayor and Council, let me just start by saying, again, Brad has done a great job of bringing me up to speed on this. I'll be, the city attorney and I will be taking over from this point forward, the negotiation, if you will, or arm wrestling with the insurance company on the claim, to get that off our community planning director. I do believe this is, I hope, will be the last step. I think we're sort of in a situation here where the insurance company's calling the shots a little bit. Likely worth $2, $3, $4 million, we hope, to complete this. It's the final step to convince them of the significance of the damage and the amount of monetary assessment we should be given for this project. So I've talked about it, and I think it's, I think this is it's the last positive step that I can think we ought to take from here on out. If this doesn't do it with the attorney, or this doesn't do it with the insurance company, then the city attorney and I will have to have some discussion and come to you with a recommendation on how we potentially go forward. It's a big insurance company. If we have to get in a battle with them, it likely will be costly as well. So I think this is prudent in order to demonstrate what needs to be, and I think the money at large is certainly something we want. So my recommendation, obviously, is for council to approve.
So this is basically the attorney, the insurance company is specifically asking for this partial demolition to analyze more.
I think Mr. Hanson convinced them, continues to work to convince them that the damage was more significant than they're necessarily assessing. So I think this is their compromise in saying, okay, let's go in and pull some more stuff out of the way and be able to get a better look and get a better assessment. Again, I know to members of council and likely some of the community, this seems unreasonable and like it's been going on for a long time, but I think every one of us understands what's at stake here. And, these insurance companies over the last several years really have, there's a real beating going on. The insurance companies with the natural disasters and claims and things, so they're really tightening up, and likely they have a lot of clients who the level of pushback they've given us would have already scared the clients off, and they would have taken the initial offer and moved on. So I think again, this is reasonable for the potential gain in the money that we could recover. And again, I think it will also give us give us more corroborating evidence for our case if we end up in a legal battle of what we need to. I think it will only further our evidence, if you will, our position that we should be compensated greater. And I would defer to the city attorney at this point as well for opinion.
Councilmember Malone.
I'm just going to ask for a little bit of grace here. I just want to say thank you very, very much for the transparency. I think that that's been a long time coming on this issue, and I think you just checked a box for me, so I really appreciate that. That speaks volumes for me. Thank you.
Any other questions of council? Deputy Mayor Anzalati.
I just wanted to echo Pam's comments, actually, because I didn't know a lot of what was going on with the library, and I had to talk to the librarians to figure out what was going on, and so I appreciate you explaining that to not only us, but also to audience and to the citizens who want the library to be made quickly, and so they know we're working on it, but there's some issues going on, and this is why, and this is what's happening, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Okay. Madam Clerk, Mr. Manager.
Again, and I appreciate the kind comments from members of council, but I want you to all be clear, your staff has been hard at work on this. I don't think there's been a moment Brad has not been on this. Gina certainly has been pulling double duty on the comptroller, finance side, and city management, so I don't think there's any intention to not provide you information. So I don't want you all to think that anything there is going. I think that the staff has been hard at this, and it's just a battle.
So, thank you. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilmember Moon.
Yes.
Mayor Carrington.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Anzalati.
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yes.
Councilmember Best.
Yes.
Unanimous.
Okay. All right, no unfinished business, no new business. Record of items placed on the table.
2 documents from Michelle Kincaid and the 2023 audit.
Okay. Audience participation. A second chance. I guess I still have the sheet, so who would like to come forward? And I'll go ahead and write your name down. But please start with your name and
Good, Michelle Kincaid. So in your inbox is just, as we were researching waivers, is a document from a waiver for 736 South Alaska. And it says count on-street parking for parking requirement. Each 25 feet on South Alaska Street and West Evergreen, which is marked for parking, counts as one space. So then I also included a picture in front of the Just So building, and you can see the big yellow no parking area. And so I was told that they get to count 2 parking spaces in the front and the back, even though legally you cannot park 2 there. And there will be one of these pictures. And so as planning and zoning is reviewing the codes, these are some things that we've been asking them to make changes for. But as it comes to you, then you will get to review it as well. And so we're just bringing it to light in case they don't suggest some items that might be really important. Because otherwise, in that yellow zone, if they're counting it, that person has to park in front of somebody else's business. And those businesses have already counted that as one of their parking spaces. So that's one of the discrepancies I'm hoping that you guys might be able to ask the city attorney to look at now, because clearly what I'm being told right now is they can count 2, but here's precedence that on this waiver that was granted, that it clearly says with the same code that you have to count parking that is legal, that is marked for parking. Also, as far as the waiver goes, without updates to code, waivers, and legal language, Palmer's parking problem will continue to get worse. It's the business types that have the high parking needs that are causing all the problems. They have caused the problems, they are causing the problems, and they will continue to cause the problems in the future. And of course, my concern is the building in proximity, which is right beside ours. If they're allowed to go in and they are ignoring codes, there can literally be 50 cars parked on the on the streets. And so that's going to impact existing businesses that have been there forever for precedence for this one that has no legal, they don't even have a handicap parking on their own property. They're a 0 lot line building with zero privately held parking. And the gentleman was well aware when he purchased the building. He said he wouldn't purchase it if he couldn't lease property next door, and the owner didn't want to give him his property, but he plans to go forward with it. And my concerns is the city has already ignored current waivers of people that are breaking rules, and so what are they going to do with this person? And it's going to impact all the tenants that I have in the Kozlowski Center. There's retail business, there's professional, and there's service businesses there. And they rely on the parking around the building for people to park. Oops, out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for the second audience participation?
So we're going to continue on the parking situation. So
please start with your name.
Lori Kopenberg. On the painted yellow, I myself contacted Greg Wickham at Public Works just to verify what does that mean. And I said, does that mean that you can park there or you can't park there? And he says, absolutely, you cannot park there, you will get ticketed. And in the DMV manual, it strictly states, a yellow painted curb means no parking. So the yellow painted curb in front of the Gesso building is a no parking area. Therefore, they cannot count it as a parking. So I just wanted to clarify that. Mr. Molesky was asking about the parking lots in Palmer. That's already been done through the Brownfield study. That is easily accessible. That can be given to you. It shows you all the parking in the downtown area in the central business district. The other thing, in prior years, once I started paying attention, having businesses and property in Palmer, I started paying attention to what City Council was doing, especially when we tried to do the one-way couplet. We stopped that, thank God. We would have had a three-lane one-way going through our town. But me, Michelle, and a couple of us spent tens of thousands of dollars, brought up professionals, and we got the council to change their mind. Thank goodness, right? But what they had a habit of doing is they would go forth and they would do what they wanted to do, and then they would come seek out forgiveness from council after they've already done the duty, right? So this gentleman is going to go forward. He's already spent probably close to $500,000 on this building. He says he's going to spend hundreds of thousands more developing it. You've denied his waiver. He plans to go forward. So will he come and ask for forgiveness after he's already spent the money? And what will this city council and this management do? Will you give him forgiveness and let him continue in the path that he is asking? Or will you stop it sooner so that he does not waste his money and create a problem in downtown Palmer that is easily fixed today? It can be dealt with today. I'm asking the city council to really step up. Maybe the city manager should be spending some time talking with the attorney, dealing with the situation. You're aware of it, you know his intent, and you have the ability to stop it today. And I ask that you really look at that. The other thing that we should look at is the residential areas that are in the central business district. They have the same potential happening to them over at Mr. Molesky's house. A person can buy 2 lots that can create a high demand business. I don't think Mr. Molesky's gonna like it when all of his parking is taken up by those businesses, and neither will any other residential area want that in their area, because commercial creep is real. It's happened, we've seen it, and we need to make that a situation that is reviewed and possibly repealed and bring back what the central business district really should be, and respect and treat our residents in the city of Palmer with the respect that they deserve and that we want. We want our residents in our town. We don't want it just to be a big old commercial place. Otherwise, we don't become a town, we become a business center. So those are the things that this city council can do today, that the city manager can work on, that the city attorney can work on. You're aware of it, and I ask that you start doing it, because he's going to spend hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then he's going to ask for forgiveness to go forward.
That's your time. Anyone else for our second audience participation? Seeing no one come forward. Just trying to prioritize you here.
Well, one thing that just kind of went through my mind.
What was your name again?
Russ Arts, Palmer. One thing that I was thinking about is we do have a handicap parking issue in this town also, from businesses and all that. The other question is, so if the city is granting all his parking exemption to him, are they responsible for his handicap parking area? How much of a burden is this going to put on City Works? Because it costs money to take care of our parking lots. So if you're looking at these exemptions, So who's paying for that? Are you going to have to pay to put handicap parking on the street next to his building if you're giving them parking spots? Just stuff to think about. I also want to say thank you to the Palmer Police. We've had one of our problem individuals, and I saw him in the morning time, and I watched him walk in and pull up his hood as he was walking down the hill. And the Palmer Police were on him that evening. Also, thank you to George for taking such great care of the golf course. It's really nice. He's got me golfing a lot this summer. And yes, I saw the mayor speak at the chamber, and he did a really good job speaking. So thank you.
I was going to say, is there anyone else? Looks like,
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jackie Goforth. As you know, I'm a published writer, and I've spent 30 to 40 years in the publishing industry figuring out all the ins and outs of it, and I already knew that the sexualized fiction was in the adult section. I didn't find out until 17 months ago that they had moved it into young adult, which is 14-year-olds, by making their protagonists in the 16-year-old range. That's how they do it. I just discovered one that's a 19-year-old protagonist, and when I mentioned it we sent a concern email to your Palmer librarian and also to the Wausau librarian, they told me, oh, the publisher has just reprinted those as adult now, so we're moving them. So maybe they're starting to figure out that this is not acceptable material for children. The book Identical was rated by your librarian and the group of people that I only get to talk to 4 in a closed meeting. They all said it was fine for young people. Do you know that the Library Citizens Advisory Committee over at the borough just said that it should be burnt? They said, all 7 of them said, this is indecent. All 7 of them said, this is prurient interest. 6 to 1 said it has no value to anyone under 16. 5 of them said remove it, and 2 of them said move to adult. Now why, I'm telling you, one of those is a librarian, why would they say it's adult now when they didn't when I was talking here and they didn't in January over at the borough? I'll tell you why, because what's inside those books is now coming out. Somebody in this city is involved with your nonprofit, okay? My corporation was yanked from me without my knowledge, because somebody in Palmer sent something to the state of Alaska saying I had no authorization to be there or no affiliation. And when I asked who it was, I got no record found. No record found. I want you to know I have retained an attorney. He will be speaking for me at the APOC hearing in 2 days. You don't know who he is, no one will find out till tomorrow. I would really ask for an investigation because somebody makes sure that everything is orchestrated here at the city. Otherwise, why would they have had a tissue box here 2 weeks ago when all those people decided to do a character assassination attempt on me for trying to show people what's inside these books? What you saw and heard from those people who were so upset at me for handing out flyers was what's inside these books. It's the exact same stuff. And yes, it's extremely upsetting that we continue to have these problems, and I continue to have to come in here and speak with everyone about it. And the reason why I do is because I care. I care. The instant a child sees that, it's like having a loaded gun. So I just gave you the Anchorage Daily News article written by Amy Bouchatz. It's taken from permission. And what it tells you is what happened at the Library Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. And I also want you to know that the school district thing, it hasn't been decided whether books are obscene or not. The only thing that's been decided is books cannot be taken off the shelf while they're being evaluated. And if it wasn't available, if it wasn't possible to have an obscene book, then why didn't that judge put the 7 books back out? I have heard it now 3 times from these people that there's no such thing as an obscene book in the library. Untrue.
that's your time.
Thank you.
Anyone else for audience participation?
Mike Bolevsky. I live in downtown Palmer. And I want to thank Lori for reminding the fact of a study. It's a good example of people who come to these meetings who have some historical knowledge. I sometimes have some, and sometimes I forget about it. But that's important to look back and say, if you want to find a solution to this, well, maybe going through the dusty archives could bring up some useful information. We've had a couple of mentions today about the upcoming election on the 1st of October. And what we typically do, as soon as we're done with the fair, is invite all candidates, and there are 5 this time around, to be interviewed. We offer a 20, 25-minute interview. There are a number of people up here who have participated in those interviews, and we think they're useful because there's very little that's out there about candidates. Candidates can take upon themselves the opportunity to go various places, go door to door, one thing or another. But we think it's been useful to do that. So we hope to have that completed in the first part of September. We know that early voting begins in September. And we'd like to have those both broadcast and up on our website so you have an opportunity to review what people have said. And it's one of our favorite things to do, so look forward to it.
Thank you. Anyone else for audience participation? Okay, we will close audience participation. Council member comments. Councilmember Malone, you want to start?
Well, I, again, as always, want to thank everybody for coming out. Mr. Mayor, it sounds like your speaking tour has begun, and it sounds like you're going places with your speech. So I wasn't able to hear it, but congratulations. Sounds like you had an impact, which is always a good thing. I am excited about our new city manager. I've had an opportunity to talk with him. I really want to encourage our business leaders and thought leaders in the community to spend some time with him, get to know him, and see if you can build some bonds and some relationships. I think that there's potential there to have great outreach, and so I just want to encourage that. I'm really concerned about some of the things that were brought up tonight, especially around the parking. I am never a person that wants to get in the way of progress, especially where the trajectory of growth for businesses is critically important to our tax base, to what we try to accomplish as a city. But I've said it once, and I'm going to say it again, and I've said it when I ran, and is that we have to be very careful about how we grow in Palmer. So with that, I'd like to ask for support to task the attorney to look at the codes, the drafts, the language and compliance, and work with the city manager to evaluate if any discrepancies or concerns or confusion, especially in the permitting process, exists for parking. Especially with what we're hearing with this downtown business. So, and I'd like for her to give that report after discussions with the city manager at her earliest convenience. And I'd just like to ask for support in that.
I can support that.
Okay.
There was, thank you, was that clear? Okay. And then, yeah, I think that's it for tonight. I'm going to let the other council members perhaps speak about what some of their concerns are, if they have any. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Councilman Alcantara.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate it. I too want to welcome Stephen Jelly here to the city of Palmer, and it's nice to meet with him last week, but nice to see you actually here at the council meeting in your new role. I hope what you got a little bit today from our audit is how strong a financial condition you're inheriting here at the city of Palmer. So it's probably a breath of fresh air for some of the places you've had to be in the past, and it's a testament to your predecessors and, of course, Gina Davis and other staffers. So I think it's great to have you here. I wish you nothing but safe travels on your way back. And if it's possible to be part of, like our city attorney, possible to be part of the meeting on September 10th, that's great. But if you're in Muncho Lake with no internet, we get that as well. I know we had a lot of drinking from the fire hose, but take that city code with you, focus on the parking, and you'll be in good shape. I wanted to say, I played a couple rounds of golf in June, and I took July off, and thinking maybe it'd improve my golf game, and it didn't. But I can say now, playing in August, what did improve was the condition of Palmer Golf Course. It really, really got nice over the last 60 to 75 days. I'm glad George was here for the thing that he had on the agenda tonight, but I hope for a nice run of perfect September days where it's, 55 and sunny during the day and 43 at night, so we don't get frost problems or anything else. And historically, I think, George can certainly correct me, or maybe Mr. Best, but historically, Palmer Golf Course has stayed open the latest of anybody in the state, and sometimes even to like mid-October, if no snow happens and they get some good late fall or early fall for most people, but late fall for Alaska weather. I do want to say, too, that if you haven't had an opportunity to go to the state fair, whether you see Big Cabbage Radio in Ravenhall or just go to the fair, it has been extremely well attended this year. I went to the fair obviously as a kid, but I worked the fair generations ago as a teenager, and I've never ever, and I go to the fair a lot, I've never seen anything like this. Of course, the pun is, it's been pretty ludicrous out there, but a lot of people showing up for the state fair. So give yourself a chance to go to the state fair. I do want to finish by saying Wednesdays is the one day I cannot miss work, and our city manager is going to have an event tomorrow from 2 to 4. I'll be conspicuous by my absence, but that's Wednesday's the only day of the week where I absolutely have to be at Job Corps 8 to 5 and can't get break away. So I hope people out there and people in this room will attend tomorrow and give them a little brief send-off before he travels for the next couple of weeks. And thanks for the time.
Deputy Mayor Anzalati.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I thought I was going to be after Mr. Best, so you caught me off guard. I actually wanted to clarify, Pam, in your request, does that include looking at our policy with waivers? Because I just want to make sure that's in there and that we look at that. And
Yeah, actually, we had asked and tasked planning and zoning to look at our waiver and compliance and to look at that and come up with a strategy around that. And I believe that they are looking at that now and have asked them to bring that back to us because I think there was a purpose for that, but now we need to possibly look at taking that back because it's not necessarily fair to the existing business owners who didn't receive a waiver.
Okay, thank you very much. Just wanted to clarify that. Also, I wanted to mention that I will be out of town for our next meeting, the 10th, September 10th. My sister's getting married down in Wyoming, so I'll be gone for that. And unfortunately, I may be gone for the 24th as well. I'm not sure. I may be able to call into either of those, but I'm not sure yet. Just wanted to get that out there. And welcome, Mr. Joey. Look forward to working with you, and I think I should be able to go tomorrow and hang out for a little bit, so that'll be fun. And then I just wanted to say that I am looking into and researching for myself a lot of the different things that are going on with the library and with the APOC situation with the Friends of the Palmer Public Library, and I just want the citizens to know that I'm paying attention to that issue and I'm looking into it for myself and getting the facts. So, thank you.
Councilman Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since we're going to be coming into budget season for us, starting here shortly, I want to kind of put the bug in the manager's ear that if we need to have an RFP out there, part of the budgetary process to get engineering support or planning support from an outside source for understanding our parking situation and recommendations from them, that might be something that we need to bring forward and kind of put in the quiver of projects to work on. I would be in support of something like that. Our staff has been doing yeoman's work, but it is a very intricate problem. We want to make sure to not prohibit businesses from coming in. We also want to make sure that we have the right tools for our enforcement side of stuff, to mitigate impacts that other businesses might have, knowingly or unknowingly. So that would be my suggestion. I look forward to hear what is going to come before us. On that, also, I had heard from multiple people speak about at the chamber meeting about your speech that you gave, that they felt it was very Palmer. It was just that it was just a lot of yourself, who you are, who we are, and they wanted to show respect and mention it to you. So thank you, sir.
Thanks. Yeah. And I want to mention a couple things. One thing, I've had discussions with, when Gina was the interim, as well as with Mr. Jelly, that this summer particularly, to me, it's become apparent that sometimes we get on to cruise control and things just keep going the way they've been going, and there's not much thought involved. And I think it's time to take things off cruise control and kind of reevaluate. Maybe that worked great in the past, but we need to think about it and actually be intentional about it. And yes, from 2 to 4 at the depot is a meet and greet to meet Mr. Jelly, and I think you'll even have some of your family there. Okay. All right, and with that, we're adjourned at 7:43. You want these?